Right, so I don't have much time. This message is being looped on all temporal frequencies. If you can hear this, the world is lost. Humanity is dwindling. We are the last of our kind. We ignored the signs. It started off so slow, but gradually the machines started becoming more and more like us until it was too late. Heed this warning. Don't let them in. Don't listen to them.
Don't listen to him. Hell yes, listen to us. This is Scott Reece with Rob Cardosi. We are The Rabbit Hole with Cardosi and Reece. Rob, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How you doing this weekend, brother?
Good. We are going to jump down some rabbit holes today. Why don't you talk about that, Rob?
All righty, cool, man. You know, on our show, we like to go down different rabbit holes about music, trivia. We talk about TV shows, anything that we think you might enjoy. So this week, I think we're going to do deep dive into the Sunset Strip in California and how it made its biggest contributions to music and today's, I guess, society.
Well,
you know,
the Hollywood basically attracted everyone. And then during, the 60s, 70s, it was popular, definitely popular. It was a place to go. But in the 80s, it kind of changed. It became the Mecca.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there, my brother. It just ballooned and it just got huge. You know, it's starting in the late 70s and everything. And then in the 80s, everybody decided that if they were going to make it in music, they had to be in LA. And if you went to LA, of course, you had to play the Sunset Strip.
Right.
And then for our, we do our segment of 6 degrees of separation. I think since we're on the Sunset Strip, we're going to kind of stick with that whole subject in this week. And we're going to talk about Lemmy Kilmister.
Lemmy.
The man himself.
Yes, love Lemmy. I mean, he embodies rock and roll. He is rock and roll in the essence,
Yeah, you look up the word heavy metal in the dictionary, and there is a picture of Lemmy holding a bottle of Jack Daniels. Praise the man.
And a cigarette, and a long cigarette.
Yep. They say Keith Richards was the god of rock and roll because he outlasted anything. I think Lemmy made Keith Richards look like a schoolboy.
I know, yeah, definitely. All right, well, we're going to talk about the Sunset Strip. It was actually back in the 60s when they started the Beach Boys, the Byrds, the Monkees, the Mama and Papas and all, Janis Joplin, all the greats, went back. They made it famous. And then the 70s, did that. But, the roots of that, they had Ray Charles, B.B. King, Vanilla Fudge, and they kind of laid the groundwork for it to really bubble up in the 80s. And I think the hair metal kind of just brought out the freak shows.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good way to put it. If you could wear if you were a man and you could get away with wearing women's clothes, you had big hair and makeup and you could play a guitar, you could go down and play and get a band together on the Sunset Strip back in the 80s.
Pretty quickly. I mean, we talked about how bands would have changed. Poison with Slash, Metallica with John Bush from Armored Saint, and then in the 70s we had Van Halen, Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath. All the greats played there. And imagine being there back then. I mean,
but we can even go back farther than that. I mean, think about it. When Mario took over the Whiskey A Go-Go, he was brought in from Chicago to run the Whiskey A Go-Go and just manage it. He started bringing in all the R&B bands and all of the Motown bands. He was the first. The Whiskey was the first place to integrate.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He brought in Smokey Robinson. He brought in the Temptations into the Whiskey A Go-Go.
Yep. And that was, that was not you couldn't do that back then. But I think music obviously is bringing people together no matter what.
That's what he said. He said music. That's what Mario used to say. He said music had no color.
True. Very true.
which I fully believe.
A
'Cause it touches-
it's a universal language understood by all.
Right, exactly. And here's what I find really exciting about the Whiskey A Go Go. And I don't know if a lot of people know this because they do know the whiskey as a rock bar.
Right.
Okay. Mario's the first big star that he ever booked there was Johnny Mathis.
Really?
Yes, it was. And you know who Johnny's opening act was and actually got booed off the stage?
Tell me, Professor.
The Doors.
Really?
The Doors. That was was Johnny Mathis's opening band, and they literally got booed off the stage.
Wow.
So they left and went down to Lazari's. Okay.
Right.
And they started honing their craft. And a few months later, they go back and they end up becoming the opening band for a band we all now know as Chicago, but back then it was the CTA. Okay, the Chicago Transit Authority.
Transit Authority, correct. Yeah.
Right. And the Doors become their opening act. Well, then Chicago ends up getting signed. So they leave and go on a national tour and everything. So Mario was, he was needing a headlining band again. And he decided
a house band, right.
A house band. And he decided to give the Doors their chance.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he gave them access to the club just like any other band, and they would go in and they would rehearse. And I remember seeing an interview, believe it or not, with Mario and him saying that he could remember them singing Light My Fire for 4 hours before it was ever on the radio. He just hear them practicing it and rehearsing it over and over and over again.
Really?
Yeah. So he's the reason why I think we have to really, hand it to Mario that he's kind of the reason we had the Doors.
Right.
Because they were ready to call it quits once they got fired the original time, and then they went down to Lazari's and stuff like that. And then I think they even played at Barry's Beanery.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you've heard of the Beanery, right?
Yep.
We all know the story of Jim Morrison and the bar, right? If you go down to the Beanery today, you will see a sign on the bar said Jim Morrison pissed here. So now also another thing, a lot of people don't realize this, but like you had mentioned that the Beach Boys had played at the Whiskey. Well, we all know who unfortunately was a good friend of Dennis Wilson.
Who's that?
Charles Manson.
Oh, yeah. And he played with the Eagles or did something with the Eagles, didn't he?
Yeah, he did something with the Eagles too. I'm not really sure on what it was. I know, but you're right. He did do something. But story goes that Charlie was hanging out at the Whiskey A Go Go.
Charlie Manson.
Charlie hanging out at the Whiskey A Go Go, and he didn't want to pay his bill because he said he was Jesus. Well, from the story goes that Mario opened the door with his face and threw him out onto the Sunset Strip.
I would not want to have messed with Charlie Manson, let me tell you that.
I don't know if I would have wanted to mess with Mario. He was a hard hitting man from Chicago. So, and then later on, Mario, we all remember, we all know the Rainbow.
Right.
And, it had been shut down for many years. I do believe it was called the Villanova before it was the Rainbow. And if you don't know what the Villanova was, that's where Joey D actually proposed and had his first date with Marilyn Monroe.
Huh. Okay.
So it used in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, the Villanova was the place to be if you were a movie star, other than the Brown Derby.
Okay.
It was also the Villanova. And then in the 60s and 70s and 80s, it kind of changed and became the Rainbow, and it was a place for musicians to hang out.
And what was it called? The Brown Derby? Or what was it called?
No, It was called, the Rainbow was originally called the Villanova.
Villanova. Okay.
Villanova, yes. And then Mario, he reopened it and called it the Rainbow and the Bar and Grill.
Rainbow Bar and
And
Grill, right.
right. And then all the movie stars still were coming down there, but they were coming down to hang out with the musicians. Okay. And um that the Rainbow is the place that gave us the birth of the original Hollywood vampires.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know, and I do you know who the Hollywood vampires were,
That's
don't you?
with Alice Cooper, Johnny Depp, Joe Perry, that one?
No, that's the new Hollywood vampires.
Okay.
The original Hollywood vampires were John Lennon, Alice Cooper, Mickey Dolenz, and Pete Townsend.
I did not know that.
And upstairs in the Rainbow, they had a little private area, and they called it the Vampire Lounge.
Up above, correct?
Right, up above.
Yep.
And it was originally started as like a drinking club because Alice had been to
Rehab.
yeah, and everything, and he was getting away from drugs and all that stuff, but he still drank. But so this became his drinking club with all his buddies, and believe it or not, it actually started out as a softball team.
That'd be weird.
Alice wanted to put together a charity softball team. And it was done with Pete Townsend, Mickey Dolenz, him, and John Lennon, and there were a revolving members, but those were the core members.
Got it.
And you had to kind of be invited into the lounge, and that was like the place to be in the 60s and in the 70s and stuff, you know.
Nice.
So
yeah,
but
Hollywood brings you there, and then the little haunts and the little cool places for the cool people, and it always keeps being the cool place.
Right.
So go ahead.
So now we're in the 60s and everything, and Alice and everybody, and I mean in the 70s, Alice and everybody's hanging out there. Led Zeppelin's hanging out there. Everybody. Lemmy even started hanging out there back then.
Got it.
But now we move into, and the people would go down and they would play at the Whiskey, and the bands would come after the Whiskey. They'd all head down to the Rainbow and hang out at the bar and drink and everything like that. And the people that played at the Troubadour would leave the Troubadour and they'd go hang out at the Rainbow, because the Rainbow was like the center of the strip.
Of both.
Yeah. It was the center of the strip. And if you wanted to get noticed or you wanted to be discovered, you wanted to be hanging out at the Rainbow. I've seen interviews with like Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses, that he said when he first went to LA, he would hang out at the Rainbow every single night, just until he got hot, until him and Slash got discovered.
Met someone, yeah. Looking for a drummer, looking for a bass player, looking for a guitar player.
Yeah, because like Ozzy Osbourne would hang out there, because we've all heard the stories that he hung out there for a week and a half straight and didn't go home until Sharon sent somebody to go get him. They were letting him sleep in his booth and everything like that. Well, he would have a tour going on and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a guitar player." Well, all these other musicians are there. They're like, "Well, can I audition for Ozzy?" And that's how they would find their bands. It was kind of cool if you think about it.
I mean, there was no internet. There was phone call and letters, and you did it the old-fashioned way, word of mouth. Hey, check out this band at Gazzari's this weekend. It's Quiet Riot, or it's L.A. Guns. So that was the cool part.
Mm-hmm.
Before.
And from what I understand, excuse me, that's where Ozzy first heard about Randy.
Correct.
Was when he was at the Rainbow.
Correct.
And then we all know, Randy was friends with Rudy. So Rudy brought him into the band.
Yeah, wasn't it Dana Strum introduced Randy to Ozzy, or somehow Dana Strum from Slaughter
Yeah, he introduced him and everything like that, and then
Right.
that's where the band came from. But it all started at the Rainbow.
6 degrees of separation to the rainbow.
Yeah, there you go. How many bands? Probably came out of there? You'll never know.
Well, I mean, there were a lot of the big bands that made it, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, all that. Then there's like, L.A. Guns, Black and Blues, Cinderella, Winger,
Well, if you were
Stryper.
actually Striper, yeah, you're right. But also, I mean, we can take it all the way back from, well, you just mentioned Guns N' Roses, but what about when they weren't Guns N' Roses yet? It was just Hollywood Rose.
Correct. And
then Axl met Tracy, and boom, it becomes Guns N' Roses.
Right. And then
it comes LA Guns.
Didn't Slash replace Gunn? What's it? Tracy Gunn? Obviously.
No, Slash didn't replace Tracy Gunn. Slash replaced a guy named Greg something, who has been, I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he was the original guitar player for Hollywood Rose.
Okay.
And then Slash replaced him. And, Tracy was still in the band at the time. And then Tracy decided that he couldn't compare to Slash, and he left the band and started LA Guns.
LA Guns, right.
And plus he was having, difficulty with Axl Rose, because we all know Axl Rose is such an easy man to get along with.
Oh, no. Really?
Yes, sweet guy, sweetheart, man. If you interrupt him during a show, he throws a microphone at you. No big deal.
It might have been Mr. Brownstone doing that.
Yeah, I'm pretty good, yeah.
All right, so I'll tell you my troubadour story. When I was in the Marine Corps, my buddy was down in San Diego, and we're like, let's take the train from Camp Pendleton up to L.A. It was a weekend, like a 3-day weekend. And then we get up there, and we only had enough money for Saturday night and Sunday night to get a hotel. So Friday night there, we slept out in a field somewhere. I don't know where I have no idea where we slept, right? So we get up and we're like, hey, there's an International House of Pancakes right there. Let's go catch some breakfast, because we can't check in until, 2, 3 o'clock, whatever. So we're sitting there, and I look up and I'm like, who's this guy coming in and sitting right in front of us? David Lee Roth comes walking in and orders scrambled eggs with this and that. And I'm like I told my buddy, I'm like, dude, turn around. That's David Lee Roth. And so my buddy turns around and he goes, what's up, Dave? And he goes, how you doing? And then, we ate, and then he got up and walked out, and then our waiter come up to him and he goes, rock star. And I'm like, you are correct, because it was like 1983, 84. And so definitely. So anyway, that night we went to the Troubadour and we saw a band called Armored Saint.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and that was cool. And then I think the next night we went to I think the Whiskey. And who the hell, we saw somebody. But anyway, it was thriving. It was people on the streets flyering, putting up their flyers, bands. And I had a Marine Corps haircut, so I was really out of place. You know what I mean? 1980.
You got long hair, you got the high and tight, right?
I got a high and tight. Yeah, definitely. But, it was people crowded the streets at 2:30 in the morning, just partying and having a great time. And those are the times that never going to get it back. I thought that was so cool. It was such a community.
Yeah.
So,
well, you remember.
Go ahead.
You do remember that speaking of Dave Van Halen, when they did that show at the Whiskey A Go Go, and they only had like 2,000 tickets or something for sale. And everyone said, oh, no, they're selling the tickets at Tower Records. So the whole crowd goes down there, and it ends up being like 6,000 people on Hollywood Boulevard trying to get into the Whiskey to see the show.
Nice. Trying to see Van Halen.
Well, at the Whiskey A Go Go. But and a lot of people, I don't know if you know this, you know who broke that record for the busiest, I mean, the most packed show at the Whiskey A Go Go?
Hold on. Let me think. LA band? Is it an LA band?
It's an LA band, and I will give you another hint. It was in the 80s.
Quiet Riot?
No.
I mean, they hit it big with the first heavy metal album, #1.
Right, that's true, very much true. But I'll give you another hint.
Another hint.
Their biggest song has a sweet dessert in it.
Has a what?
Sweet dessert in it.
Cherry pie?
Exactly.
Warrant?
Yes, Warrant broke the Van Halen record.
Wow. I did not expect that. I did not expect that one.
Yep, they did. They broke the record.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of different scenes there in the 80s. They had the alternative, like X, the Blasters, Oingo Boingo, the Motels, the Go-Go's. And then they had the punk, Bad Religion, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, Fear.
The Ramones.
The Ramones. Well, that was L.A. I mean, they're New York. But I'm talking...
But they also played the Whiskey.
I'm sure they did, but I'm saying they're more East Coast band.
Because, well, it's just like, you're talking about punk. One of the most famous shows ever done by Blondie was at the Whiskey.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where she was really discovered, was at the Whiskey.
You know how they got her name? You know how Blondie got their name?
Actually, no, I don't know that one. Come on, tell me. It's time for you, the professor, to learn something.
I'm telling the professor. They were walking down the street in New York, and everyone's leaning out the window going, "Hey, Blondie!" And they're like, "Okay, I think we just found our name."
There we go. It's like we talked about a couple weeks ago. When you know, you know.
Exactly. I mean, and let's talk a little about Gazzarri's, because that was a pretty big, they were a club. They had Van Halen as their house band, didn't they?
Yeah, Lazari's, man. Van Halen, David Bowie. David Bowie used to play there all the time. And the Rolling Stones played Lazari's. And we got to thank, Lazari's for most of those big bands in the 70s, because like I said, back when Lazari's was doing all the rock and roll, that's when the Whiskey was doing stuff like Motown. So I think it all started with them, bringing the rock and roll and, the Beach Boys and all that stuff. Because, back then, that's where you wanted to play. If you wanted to play on the Sunset Strip, you wanted to play Lazari's.
True.
That or the Troubadour, because the Troubadour, it's a great place and everything like that, but it's off the Sunset Strip. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, but yeah, you're right. Van Halen, if you think about, could you imagine of being in the crowd, and that's where Eddie used to do his finger tapping, and he would turn his back to the crowd.
So they couldn't copy him.
Right. They couldn't see what he was doing. So, right there's the birth of finger tapping. True. The birth of the flashy guitar player. That was Eddie. And
Randy Rhoads. Randy Rhoads was huge too.
Right, and Quiet Riot used to play at Lazari's.
Yep.
It's just that all these different great bands that, a lot of people think that, Randy Rhoads and all those guys and everything, they started in the 80s. But no, they started 70s. Way before, in the 70s, way before that.
Late 70s. Well, you don't know. Eddie and Randy Rhoads were the two hotshot guitar players for a while.
Yeah.
And then Eddie went huge, obviously.
Yeah, and David Lee Roth, a lot of people don't know this, but when he was just starting in Van Halen, most people don't realize that he was an EMT.
He was an EMT. He became an EMT after too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. When he originally left, when he was going to school when they were starting Van Halen, he was learning to be an EMT, which he never used, by the way. He went to the school, he went through the training and everything like that, and then Van Halen took off.
Right.
Then when he left Van Halen and his solo career kind of went,
True. Very
he
true.
became an EMT again in LA, which I think is hilarious, because if I'd have been in a car accident and David Lee Roth showed up, I don't know if I would really want him being my EMT, knowing what the man has done. I mean, I'd say, I don't have no brown M&Ms.
I would tell him put some gloves on at least.
Yes. Did you use disinfectant?
Yeah. Actually, my wife and I listened to the manager of Van Halen. He has an audio book. Holy,
Yeah.
that was a great. I mean, it was really informative, and how David Lee Roth was, a perpetual bachelor, and he looked into the mirror pretty much all the time, and did a lot of cocaine, and they all did, actually.
Yeah.
But that was the 80s. What the hell are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I've heard stories that after the shows and stuff like that, they would all go back to their Van Halen would all go back to their little 2-room apartment, and they would have like 200 people partying with them.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. So yeah, that would have definitely been exciting and stuff like that. Just imagine being a fly on the wall at some of them parties.
Oh my.
Who was there and stuff like that. And even today, with some of the bands that still go down there and play and try to get going and everything. I mean, we all know Lazari's is no longer there, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think so.
I think it's the club itself is there, but it's changed names. And right off the bat, I can't think of the name of that. And then, that also brings us to other, all the different clubs that have survived there and have changed names. Like, what about the Viper Room?
Yes. Now that recently closed, correct?
Right. That recently closed. It was originally started by Johnny Depp.
Right.
He started the Viper Room, but if I'm not mistaken, he sold that shortly after we lost River Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And if our listeners don't know, River Phoenix, that's where he died out on the sidewalk outside the Viper Room.
Right.
At the time, Johnny did own it, and I do believe he sold it shortly after that. But I know a lot of bands that got their start playing in the Viper Room.
Well, think about the era of the 1980s. What began in the very beginning of the 80s? MTV. That changed everything. That changed the look. That changed that. The Motley Crue came in with all their Shout at the Devil. Then you had Twisted Sister. You had all these bands that were brought directly into your living room. And now all those bands from the Sunset Strip are now drawn there, because you have Motley Crue, you have all those bands that are making it so that's where, like, everyone ran to Seattle when Nirvana got big. So in the 80s, MTV ruled everything. Remember Headbangers Ball? If you got on Headbangers Ball in the 80s, you can just write your own ticket,
Right. Exactly.
If it was good. It's got to be good.
Well, it's just like, you've heard, the Pussycat Club in LA, right?
Right.
Well, that Tammy Downing and Ricky Rackman owned it.
Owned that. Yep. Back in the day.
Right.
And that's
why they owned it, right?
For women, I would hope.
No. So Faster Pussycat had a place to play.
Well, there's 2 reasons. Let's talk.
Exactly. Yeah. We all know about that. I hung out in LA during the 80s, and I hung out on the Sunset Strip, and you don't know how many times I saw heads pop out from underneath tables. Seriously,
Now that's a rabbit hole.
Yes, that's a rabbit hole. You had to be careful what bathroom you went into too.
Oh, really? You didn't know if there were
Yes.
girls or guys in there or what? Or just
Oh
everybody?
no, it was what was going on in the bathroom.
Ah, got it. But there was a lot of bands that got their start, Black and Blue. They didn't make it big. LA Guns didn't make it big. They were all there. Winger made a big. Danger.
Yeah.
Rat got pretty big. I think, but they had the great videos, and I think then the video made your band, because that's all they saw back then. You just saw the the image of the band, and you're like, oh my God, I like them. They're all leather, they're all hair, they're fire women, and
Yeah,
then
I remember being out on the Strip and seeing Motley Crue play before they were anybody, and thinking it was so fabulous. Nikki Sixx Vince would take lighter fluid and spray Nikki Sixx's legs, and then they would
light
take
him
this
on fire.
and light him on fire on stage while he was playing, and it was like, wow, whoa, and you had to be back the next week because you wanted to see what else they did.
I saw them open for Y&T yesterday and today, way back, because they're local around here.
Yeah.
And it was when Vince was in the red leather at the Concord Pavilion, and I remember just going, who are these guys? Yeah. And a buddy of mine used to go to LA during his summer vacation, and he came back and he's like, there's this band in LA, they suck, they're called Mostly Crud. But they were the hot band at the time, but like 83, 84, something like that.
But you're talking right around the time we used to refer to it as, when we were all hanging out on the Strip, we had what was called the Flyer Wars.
Right.
Okay. If your band was playing here, we went out and we would buy flyers and stuff like that. And honestly, whose I remember the most from that era?
Poison.
They had these lime green freaking flyers. And later on, I talked to Brett we were talking about it one time, just joking around and remembering the days, right? And he said the reason we got the lime green ones because they were the cheapest paper to buy because nobody bought
them. Hell yeah. That's smart.
And that's how Poison, you remember when they first came out in the 80s and stuff, they had all that neon green and pink and stuff. That's why, because their flyers were green and pink because nobody bought them. Bought that paper, and it was the cheapest.
Hey, they were hot on their album cover.
Yeah.
Back then, it was very, androgynous.
Yeah, androgynous.
It was very, very, you're like, is that a girl or a guy? And they all went like Kiss, took the makeup off and started wearing, lingerie, which Gene Simmons in drag is just not metal to me,
Yeah, exactly. But then, that's where Stephen Piercy, he coined the phrase concrete pirates.
What's that?
You know how the way Rat used to dress and everything like that, and they kind of had the big boots, the knee-high boots and everything like that, and the tight pants and the flurly pirate shirt.
Right.
And they asked Stephen Piercy one day, what do you call that? He's like, concrete pirates. And that became the look.
Really?
Everybody started dressing like Stephen and stuff, and with the big flurry shirts and stuff like that, and the tight pants and all that stuff. So, Sunset Strip not only gave us music, but it started giving us, fashion culture, style.
Fashion.
Yeah. And it's crazy how it all just kind of all goes back to the Sunset Strip.
Yeah, I guess the mullet. Probably came from the Sunset Strip. Then you had the big hair. You had the leather. You had, then they went, then in the 85, 86, Poison went androgynous, and then the hair. Then it went too crazy. You know what I mean? It starts killer, and then it kind of goes, okay, it's badass, and then all the B bands that didn't really make it, or you know what I mean? Now they get signed, and then they tried to outdo the hair, outdo 12 guitars on one guy's thing, and then it gets swooshed out by the next era. And I think the Sunset Strip created bands that are still around today. You know what I mean? A lot of them. And
wasn't it a couple weeks ago we were talking about bands that were flashing the pans a little bit, and also bands that had long lasting effect. I think the Sunset Strip, a lot of those people were the ones that had the long lasting effect.
Agreed.
And as far as the fashion goes, I think a lot of that had to do with all the musicians that were dating strippers. So they'd be like, hey, that looks pretty cool. I'm going to wear that on stage. And, they'd take it from the girls.
There you go.
And that's where we got it, like in the movie The Dirt, remember that scene where Tommy Lee comes out and his sister's like, hey, those are my pants.
Right. Yes.
But he's like, well, they look better on me. So, that's where a lot of that stuff came from. The strippers were wearing these clothes and stuff like that. And you're like, well, that looks like a dude could wear it. So I'm going to put it on and it's tighter on me than it is on you. So it looks better on me,
And it didn't matter.
Right. It didn't matter. It was just, it was a crazy time. The mid 80s on the Sunset Strip, it was funny. You could drive down the Sunset Strip during the day, okay, and you'd see trash, and you'd see homeless people and all this stuff all over the place, right? But the minute that sun went down, no trash.
The freaks come out at night.
Right. All the fun, all the rockers, all the fun would start, and every club would have a line wrapped around it, and if you had long hair and tight pants and a ripped up shirt,
maybe a little makeup,
you were guaranteed to find a girl, find a band, something, and you knew you were gonna, if you showed up at the door and you looked like that, bouncer always let them in. But you showed up and you looked normal, you stood outside.
Right.
I have I'm really good friends, and I love the man to death. And I'd like to say hi to Brett Muscat, because I know he's, I went to a show with a friend of mine last Friday night and hung out with Todd Kearns, and found out that Brett was very sick. He was supposed to be there that night.
I did not know
and,
that.
So he was home in bed, and he started out. We used to say that he was the prettiest man on the Sunset Strip.
Really?
Yes, he was the prettiest man, and now he's the mayor of all things sin here in Las Vegas. But with him, he was in Faster Pussycat.
Right. Singer. Oh no, guitar player.
Guitar player, yeah. He was the rhythm guitar player for Faster Pussycat. And he told me the story behind their big hit, Got Your Number Off the Bathroom Wall.
Okay, let's hear it.
Him and Tammy walked into, they didn't have a girl that night. So him and Tammy walked into the bathroom at the Rainbow, saw a girl's name on the wall that said, "For a good time, call me." And Tammy decided to call her. And by the end of the night, Tammy and this chick had already hooked up. And then Brett and him wrote the song "Got Your Number Off the Bathroom Wall." Turns out becoming their biggest hit. And it's multi-platinum just because they walked into the bathroom at the Rainbow.
Well, hey, what better way to write a song? You hook up, you met her through a rock and roll club. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And then stories about, Slash has told me about how they all lived in a little 2-bedroom apartment, all of Guns N' Roses, right? And all the groupies coming over, because and the reason we all dated strippers back then is because they made money.
They could feed you.
Yes, they had money. They could buy us food. They brought us pizza. They, you know,
Well, why don't you tell them what band you were in?
I was in Brittany Fox, and I was actually in a few other bands, but the big one that made it was Brittany Fox. And yeah, we had strippers coming in bringing us food every day. We were making $50 a night playing at the different clubs. By the time we separated everything and we paid for our flyers and all that stuff. But the strippers, they brought us food. They helped pay our rent. So that's why we dated strippers.
Well, and plus they were good looking. I mean, come on.
Yeah, there was a hierarchy in the band. You know that, right?
Right. Singer,
the lead singer.
What is it?
He always
guitar,
got the prime. It
drummer,
went singer,
bass.
guitar, drummer, bass player.
I was the bass player, so yeah, I get that.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I was the lead guitar player, so
All right. So it had to be, it's that stuff that you always look back on and just have a big smile on your face.
Yep. And, I can remember going down and hanging out. And I remember hanging outside the Rainbow when Guns N' Roses was filming the video that they did for Terminator 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They filmed that scene in the video where they're coming out of the bar. That's them coming out of the Rainbow. And what's funny as hell, if you watch the video, look at Slash. He looks like he's wasted.
Oh, I'm sure he was.
Very much so. He had drank like 4 bottles of Jack Daniels that day.
Hey, it's the 80s. You can do that shit.
Right. So when he walked up to Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's like, whoa.
Great. I mean, it had to be a special time back then, and that's why everyone still remembers the 80s and the bands and the people and the clothing was a special time. It was. Because, like I said, I think MTV shaped it. MTV changed it all because they didn't have that in the 70s. They didn't have it in the 60s, obviously. But it brought MTV, I think, was started with it. It started the big boom of Sunset Strip, but then it also brought it brought its own downfall because I think it went too extreme. And then they're like, we need the next new thing. And things that brought down crime, reputation, overcrowding, rising operating costs. The venues changed hands. So there's a change in music. Everybody was now, we don't want that heavy metal stuff. We want to go grunge. And, and then MTV said, okay, we're going grunge, and just killed it. And that was like the death knell for it.
Yeah. Back in the 80s and stuff like that, the music was more about, hey, let's have a good time. Let's party. Where's the next party?
Right.
Where's our next drink? Where's our next woman? This, that, and the other. It was about being the excesses of life.
The 80s, the go-go 80s.
Yeah, and then grunge comes, and it was all about, poor me. My life sucks.
I'm a rock star. God, this sucks.
Yeah, I'm a rock star. Feel sorry for me. That wasn't what music was all about. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When we were coming up, all we wanted to do was make an album, make a video,
right,
get laid, get drunk, and buy a Ferrari.
There you go.
That sums up.
Did you get
Yes, I had a Ferrari.
And
yes, I did.
Go. There you go.
I had a Ferrari 308 and I had 2 Harley Davidsons. But I will be honest with everybody. I only had my Ferrari for about 6 months, and then I fell in love with the Corvette. And I got rid of my Ferrari, and I've been a Corvette lover ever since.
Corvette.
But yes, I did have, and I remember cruising down Sunset Strip in that Ferrari, and all you had to do was hit that pipes and the girls saw the long hair, and then I had a car full of girls.
You at least had one, at least one, because you can't fit two or three in there, right?
Oh yeah, we could. With the top off, they were sitting on the back. They were sitting on the doors. They didn't care. They were in the car.
They were there.
I had them laying across my lap while I was driving. It was just crazy.
It was horrible. Probably, bad memory, huh?
And now I guarantee you, there is somebody listening to this show right now, and they know who they are, laughing, turning red, and probably wanting to slap me.
Hey, it was the 80s.
Yes, it was. I do miss it. I do miss it. But let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Would you want to go back, knowing what you know now?
Oh my God. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, definitely.
I would have learned to play the guitar earlier. I didn't learn to play the guitar till I was about, till probably 90 something, 93.
Oh, see, I started playing guitar when I was 6.
Yeah, not me. No, I tried to play left-handed because I'm left-handed, and I couldn't. The guy I took lessons from, he's like, "Sorry, I can't help you. You're left-handed." I'm like, "Okay," and then fast forward 10 years, and a roommate of mine, he played guitar. I'm like, "Show me how to play guitar," and he said, "I can only show you right-handed." I'm like, "Well, show me right-handed." So there you go.
Hey, speaking of something like that, do you know how Nikki Sixx started playing bass?
He stole one. I know that.
Exactly. He wanted to join this band, and he wanted to be the guitar player. So he goes and he steals what he thought was a guitar.
It was a bass.
It ended up being a bass. So he said, "Oh, well, I guess I'm a bass player."
Well, from what I understand, he wasn't one of the best bass players back then. That they had someone else was recording his bass lines. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true, Nikki. Sorry, brother, but that's what I heard.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard people tell me that they heard him in London, and he was pretty good back then. Back when he was playing with London.
Got it. Well, I mean,
which was Sunset Strip days, pre-Motley Crue.
Pre-Motley, London, that's right. I saw The Dirt about 20, 30, 40 times. One of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a great movie, but they do take a lot of liberties with that movie. You know what I'm saying? But once again, that's another rabbit hole we can go down for you guys if you like it, if you want us to do, because there's a lot of different opinions, and I know firsthand on some of that stuff because I was there.
There you go. The man himself was there, Rob Cardosi. Perfect.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have heard about it or anything. Me and Scott have discussed this. My daughter came up with a new name for me, everybody, so...
That is
if you want to tell them what it is, Scott.
It's the professor of everything music. Is that it?
Yeah, that's what she said. I am the professor of all things music.
All things music. That is right. I mean, it's useful knowledge to people who want to hear it, right?
Yeah, and like I say, like we tell you guys every week with our show, we hope you get the chance to learn something and everything like that. We're not trying to give you an opinion. We're just giving you things to think about. And if you learn something along the way, hey, that's great. If you don't, oh well.
No, I think it's we're just because you know a lot of stuff about music and I know a lot of stuff, and we're just kind of shooting the shit and sharing different topics each week. And I think that's really cool. And I think each week you guys can expect, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of fun, and hopefully you enjoy it. That's what it's all about.
You get some fun stories, you get some laughs, and a little bit of knowledge. Like you're going to learn. I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot this week when we get into our 6 degrees.
Right, and that's where we're going to go now. And who are we going to be talking about? I know his name. We're going to be talking about Ian Frazier.
Yep. And if anybody doesn't know who that is, we're talking about the great Lemmy Kilmister.
Lemmy. I actually saw Lemmy in '81. He opened up for Blizzard of Oz, and I couldn't figure out what the hell, because they, before the band started, the microphone was up and like a loop. And I'm like, what the hell? And he came out and he had his hood up there playing that bass through a Marshall. And I'm like, what the hell is this? It was wild. Yes. It was wild. The first time hearing, because I heard, I liked good rock music, all that stuff, but Motorhead was a little different. They were really heavy at the time because Ozzy with Randy Rhoads opened up next, so it was a shock to my system, and I remember that to this day. He was born December 24th, 1945 in England. He had regular jobs. Now, what was one more of his famous jobs that he had in the early days?
I'm trying to think. There were so many different ones. Didn't he work at a brewery or something like that?
Well, he had a bunch of regular jobs, but he hooked up with someone. He was a roadie.
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right. I forgot. He was. I didn't forget. I didn't see where you were going. I thought you were talking about his regular jobs.
Regular job. Joe job.
His very first job in music was being a roadie for Jimi Hendrix.
Now that would be horrible,
because his roommate was Jimmy's drummer.
Oh,
and they just needed somebody to shag equipment and everything like that. And Lemmy had nothing else to do at the time, so he became Jimi Hendrix's roadie.
Wow!
Could you imagine being at the Monterey Pop Festival with Jimi Hendrix?
Damn.
That's history right there. But you're not, at the time, I'm pretty sure you didn't think of it, that it was history. But yeah, he worked for Jimi Hendrix.
That's a good place to start.
I mean? If I wish I could say something like that. Hey, I can, never mind. Yeah. I can say that my first gig as a guitar tech was with the great Ace Frehley.
Hey, so, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Good.
Lemmy, he had such a great career. And how many people out there know that Motorhead was actually in the Guinness Book of World Records?
Loudest band?
Loudest band and loudest live band in history.
Wow.
That's saying something right there. Now, you told your first story of Lemmy. The first time I really, I think I really got to know Lemmy, I had heard of Motorhead before, of course. I got invited, I do believe it was like 80, I want to say 88. I got invited to go to a show here in Las Vegas. It's Thomas and Mack by my good friend Brett Muscat. And he said, hey, our band's opening up, and we're the opening acts for Alice Cooper. I'm like, okay, cool. He goes, you want to come down? So I go down there and find out there's actually 3 bands on the build. And actually Faster Pussycat was opening up for Motorhead, and Motorhead was opening up for Alice. And I remember hanging outside the dressing room with Brett, and we were talking and everything like that, and watching these guys just take in bottle after bottle after bottle of Jack Daniels.
Whoa.
And I'm like, they having a party over there or what? And Brett just looks at me and goes, no, that's for Lemmy.
Yeah.
I'm
just
like, what?
For Lemmy. Just for Lemmy.
Just for Lemmy.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, can I go party with him? And Brett looks at me because he'd drink you under the table in a heartbeat. He don't drink it to get drunk. He drinks it because he likes the taste of it.
Yeah. And he liked to go fast.
Yeah.
He liked to do that stuff that gets you going.
Yeah, he contributes his wanting to play music because he went and saw the Beatles.
Really?
Yeah, he saw the Beatles play, and that's when he decided, hey, I want to be a musician. And then later on, trying to be in different bands and everything like that. I think the first the first band he was ever really in that was the Rockin' Vickers or something like that, which led him to Hawkwind.
Hawkwind was the first band he was in.
Oh, was that? So did I get it backwards?
Yeah,
Is it Hawkwind? Yeah. Then he went into after. Yeah, that's right. You're right. He was in Hawkwinds, and then they fired him, and that's when he started the Rockin' Vickers.
There you go.
And then
Motorhead.
No, then Opal Butterfly.
Oh,
then Motorhead.
Oh, okay. And
so,
the name Motorhead comes from him being known to be fast, heavy, and aggressive.
You left out one part, and we all know where that went from.
What?
His other obsession of choice.
Gambling?
No.
Cigarettes?
Methamphetamines.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he liked that. He liked to go fast.
Back in England, you were called a motorhead if you were into methamphetamines.
And there you go.
That's how you get the name Motorhead.
There you go.
And he never hid it. That's one thing you got to say about Lemmy. He never hid that stuff.
No.
He made it very well known that he loved his Jack Daniels, he loved his methamphetamines, and he loved his music.
And his cigarettes.
Yes, and his cigarettes. And yes, I have met Lemmy many, many times. I love the man. And it's funny, he actually said that the Motorhead persona, that's all it was a persona. You know, where he played the badass on stage, the mean guy, but down to earth, he was a very sweetheart of a man. You know, I remember seeing him going to the Rainbow with him. See, everybody, how it all goes back to the Rainbow.
To the Rainbow.
You know, Lemmy moved here from Wales when, well, you know, he's originally from England, but he lived in Wales. And he moved to Wales. He moved to LA, and he literally lived a block and a half from the Rainbow just because he loved the Rainbow so much.
And he had still there used to be the Lemmy seat, and then now they have the statue there. I saw that last time I was there 6-7 months ago.
Yeah, I was actually there for the dedication of the Lemmy Lounge.
Oh, wow.
And that was really cool. It was packed that night, and you can actually still go down and sit in Lemmy's seat. Sit right. I remember when he got sick, when he got diagnosed and everything like that, and he was getting sick. Mario's son actually took Lemmy's machine out of the bar for a little while and took it to his apartment so he could sit in his apartment and play his machine.
Wow.
His poker machine.
Right, because he had a favorite poker machine that he would play.
Yeah, and then after he passed away, they brought the machine back, and to this day, you can go down to the Rainbow Bar and sit down there and play at Lemmy's machine. Now, I will tell all of our friends out there, if you do drink a Jack and Coke, please do not order a Jack and Coke at the Rainbow.
No.
No, they will not give it to you if you order a Jack and Coke. You do have to order a Lemmy.
That's great. That is great that the Rainbow has such respect for the musicians in the area, good, bad, famous, not famous. You know, that place is legendary. The Sunset Strip is just, iconic, and I hope it comes back. That would be great if it come back like that.
Yeah, it would be awesome. I would love to see it again. I'd love to be able to cruise down the strip and hear just all the different music coming out of the different clubs, and knowing that that's somebody up there paying their dues and they're trying to get a contract, and they're not doing the whole AI thing, and they're not just putting it out there on the internet and stuff. They're actually out there paying their dues.
That's right. That is right.
But I truly do believe that the true rock and roll is coming back. In bands like I've said it before, Small Town Titans.
Right.
And different bands. I can't think of. There's just so many of them. BYOB. Going down to the Whiskey and seeing Count 77 or the Rocket Mafia. You know, that's Ricky, Ricky from Poison. He's still out there playing on the Sunset Strip 40 years later.
Todd Kearns.
Todd Kearns, yeah, there we go. Zachary Throne has been out there playing with Todd. Supposedly, if I'm not mistaken, Triumph's going to be coming down there. So, if anybody gets some tickets, they can go out there and check out Todd Kearns.
There you go.
Very good friend of mine. I was just at one of his shows Friday. And thank you to our listeners that did show up at the show. And I hope you enjoy your guitar picks.
There you go. And I want to thank everyone for listening to The Rabbit Hole with Cardosi and Reece. What we do here is we jump down rabbit holes. We jump down Sunset Strip. We had a good conversation about Lemmy Kilmister. And we want to thank you all for tuning in. Till next week.
Yeah, I'll see y'all next week. And next week, we got a good surprise. I think I'm going to turn the show over to my good friend Scott there, and we're going to talk about AC/DC.
Oh, yes, definitely. All right, guys, thank you very much for listening.
Peace out.
Peace out.